everyone. Welcome to my tutorial on Slack. And you might be wondering, why am I sharing this? Why am I putting this out there? And the reality is, I firmly believe every business, every nonprofit, literally everybody on the planet can benefit by having better communication. And so, one of the reasons I believe that you might want to look at Slack is its ability to have permanent communication. So, the reason I like Slack is that I can eliminate a lot of repetitive emails. And this works both internally with your staff, with your team, and it works externally with your clients. So the number one use I see for Slack is communicating internally as an onboarding tool for new employees, also as a retraining tool for existing clients. Think of it as a searchable knowledge base, really good for storing all of that collective wisdom. And the other thing is, if you're onboarding clients, it's a really great place to keep all of that information in one place. So in this video, I'm going to go through some of the what I consider the basics of Slack, but the fundamental thing is you need to plan ahead and you need to figure out what your communication looks like. Because one of the things when I first discovered Slack, I didn't fall in love with it instantly because I felt there was a lot of chaos and my brain likes order, and I think most of us do. So, one of the things I would strongly encourage is to give some thought to how you're going to organize your information in Slack. Again, when you're onboarding a new client, you can have them, access the common forms, access things. Think of it as a really light portal where you can collaborate and communicate. And what this does is people don't have to ask the question, when a new person comes into your world, I guarantee there's 10 questions that get asked over and over and over and over again. So our goal is to have a place for those 10 questions. I use it, and the demonstration I'm going to show you is in my workspace for something called the clientology growth system. We actually use this to train our employees and our clients. So I'm going to walk you through that. And then the third and final use I see, and I say final use because this is where I'm at today, but the third use I would suggest is as a light to do or project management or um, help desk sort of ticketing system where you can track your issues in here. People can come in, ask for support. And what I like about Slack is it can take a lot of that repetitive conversation out of your inbox, and it can reduce the volume because people don't need to email you and say, "Hey, Jeff, where would I find this?" So some of the things I'm going to show you today are how to set up Slack, how to search in Slack, how to find things in Slack, and I'm going to give you some tips on how to organize in Slack. So the first thing you need to know about Slack is to create a new workspace. So this whole area, considering the list on the left and the content on the right, this entire area is in one workspace. So for every organization, I recommend you have at least one workspace. And if you're going to think about having a second workspace, think long and hard about what that second workspace will do that you can accomplish in the first. So I'll have another video on how to create, but it's really, really simple. If you're going to create a workspace, you go to slack.com and you can set up a new workspace, or like I said, I'll have a detailed video on it. If you're already using Slack, one of my best pieces of advice is if you're on a PC or a Mac, download the desktop app and actually run it. It gives you a little bit more control, a little bit more functionality than the web browser app. Now, if you are portable and you're working on numerous devices, then you probably want to stick with the app within your web browser. So the secret is, and this is what I do, I have Slack on every device. So I have it on my phone, I have it on my tablet, and I have it on my PC. And what that does is it allows me to communicate with anyone, anywhere, at any time. And because I'm using one platform, everything's in one place. So that's probably my biggest why with Slack is, I was getting overwhelmed. People were reaching out to me on social media, they were reaching out to me on email, they were sending me texts, they were using WhatsApp. Uh, what I like about Slack is everything's in one place, so I can easily refer them to other things. So I'm going to go through the highlights of Slack. And yes, this is an in-depth training. It will become the basis of a course down the road. I just want to make sure that you're comfortable with Slack because I believe the biggest mistake people make is somebody sends them a link, says use Slack, and they go, okay. And they just start and they think, oh, I'll figure it out on my own. But Slack has a lot of really powerful, really cool things that are hard to discover on your own, but once you've discovered them, they're incredibly powerful. So my goal is to share those incredibly powerful things with you. So again, this is a workspace. So you can see I can change to different workspaces. But basically, this is my main, as you can see up top here, it's the Clientology Growth System workspace. And I have the free version. So we'll talk about versions. I always start with the free version because you can learn whether it's a fit for you. I think they give you 60 days or something. Um, what it does is the limitation of the free version is that anything over 90 days gets archived. So you want to be mindful of that. But don't go to the paid plan until you're really comfortable that Slack works with you. So the first thing, whether you're on a tablet or a smartphone or a PC or a Mac, um, the interface looks fairly similar. One big thing when you're on a tablet, if you've got multiple workspaces or a tablet or a smartphone, if you have multiple workspaces, you click or touch the little icon and it'll drop down and it'll show you these. So this bar doesn't always show up on a tablet or a smartphone. This, however, always does. So these up here are your shortcuts, and we'll talk about threads, but basically they're replies to messages. So they nest underneath the main message. Direct messages are anything that's private between you and another person. I usually don't show this up here because it's down here. And then we'll talk about mentions and reactions as well. It shows me that I have one unfinished draft or unsaved draft. So I can click here to go to that draft. I can click here to see my saved items. So you can see this kind of takes you through these things. And then Slack Connect is to connect you to people outside of your own community. I don't use it at the moment, but I plan on using it as I get a little further into it. And then the most important one, in my opinion, is you can see all channels. You can see files that have been uploaded. You can see specific people and user groups. You can see the apps that are in. The most important one I like to have showing is unread. And what that does is it gives you a running feed of all of your unread messages. And that way you can just quickly go through and answer and reply. Now, down here, so you can see this part here is my list of channels, and we're going to spend some time there. And then I have a list of my direct messages. And if you have other apps integrated, they would show up here. So the most important thing, in my opinion, is to get your channels right. So typically, there are two types of channels. They're public and they're private. So with the pound sign or the hashtags symbol, those are open, and anybody in your channel can be part of that. Sorry, anybody in your workspace can be part of that channel. So if it has the little hashtag, it's open. what it'll do, I'm gonna stop my camera because you need to see the screen, not me. Okay, so these are open channels because they have a hashtag. And what that means, for every channel, when you're here, you've clicked on it, it's highlighted over here, but it also tells you up here that you're in that channel. And it tells you there are two pinned posts and you can add a bookmark. So I'm going to show you that in a second. And you can also add people to that channel. But the cool thing is, if you're ever wondering who's going to see my message, if you're in a channel, everybody up here, and you can see all members, you can just click on it, right click, or sorry, left click on it. You can see all the members. So any messages, no matter what you say or do, any message in this channel is seen by everybody in the channel. So keep it in mind that this is public. Think of it like a bulletin board in the lunchroom at an office. Everybody can walk by and see it. Now, you can either have a message, which is top level hierarchy, or you can have a thread. So the way to know the difference is a message is always full screen and it's big and it's there. And threads are denoted by replies at the bottom. So if you want to create a new message, you just go to the bottom of your screen and it's literally very, very simple. You can bold, you can italicize, you can strike through, you can add a link. You can do an ordered list, so that's one, two, three or you can use a bullet list, which is just bullet points. You can do an indented quote, so it just makes it a little bit indented. If you really want, you can insert HTML code, and that's just generic HTML code, or you can have it offset with a little bit of a line. So those are the main, it's very, very simple, basic text editor. But the other part that's really relevant is you can record video clips. You can have audio clips. You can add emojis, so you can put a smiley face in your text. And this is probably the one that most people misunderstand and don't get. But you can mention somebody using either you can click on this down at the bottom and it puts the at symbol. And what you can do is pick somebody from your list, or you can do at channel to notify everybody in the channel. And one of the misconceptions here, I think people think, well, I just put somebody's name in here. So for example, if I just put at Pete, people think, oh, this is private between Pete and I. No, everybody sees it, but Pete gets a notification up here that he was mentioned. So if you're trying to get somebody's urgent attention, you want to tag them and say, at Pete, look at this. If it's just, a general message and you don't need it, you leave the at symbol out and you just say, Pete, check this out. So that's a great tool to get people to upload things. And there's really, really simple editor. The last thing I want to say, people don't necessarily think about this, but there is this little plus sign. And what the plus sign does is it allows you to create a new post. You can create a reminder to come back to something later. So if, for example, you know, you're busy right now and you want to look at it in an hour, you can set a reminder. You can view the apps that are connected to the workspace. We'll talk about apps at the end. You can browse shortcuts and see what else you can do. But the important thing is if you want to share something like a PDF or a Word document or Excel, you can upload from your computer and attach it. There's also a Google integration where you can add links and the file stays in your Google Drive, but somebody can click and go to it. So there's a lot of power in this. And I like speed and I like a lightweight Slack. So most of the time, I'll put my videos up on YouTube because that is one of the limitations of Slack is how much storage space you can have. So I'll put my videos up on YouTube as a private video or an unlisted video, depending on the video. And then I'll put the link to the video in here. And it's great because it actually shows the link and a shortcut, or sorry, a preview of the video. So you can see I have some PDF attached here. I have a video here, and then lots of responses. So this is the message. So just as a reminder, when you look at it, people get confused and they're like, "Oh, I didn't know I was posting publicly." It literally says in the default text, you're putting a message into this channel. So reminder, when it says message and a channel, with the little hashtag, all of these people see it. Okay. I'll talk about direct messages in a minute. Now, here's how you keep your Slack neat, and you want to train people and encourage people to do this. Instead of them always posting a new message, because that gets really messy really quickly. It's like having one subject line in your inbox and email for all of your emails. It becomes hard to find. So if you're having a conversation specific to this message, most people, because it's right there, they think, "Oh, I'm just going to add another message." Um, the messages don't stay in order. They don't stay next to each other, and it's hard to go, "Oh yeah, I should have seen this coming," or "I should have known about this." What you want to do instead of creating a new message is you want to reply to a thread. And you immediately know you're in a thread when it says over on the right hand side, it says this is a thread in this channel. So again, there's three places over on the left, at the top, and on the right here. It tells you exactly what channel you're in. And when you do this, again, there's a reminder right there. Everybody sees this in an open public channel. And what you will see is down here, you get to reply. So over here, it's message. Over here, it's reply. So best practice, you want to keep all of your replies nested under the relevant thread. That way, for example, if you're doing customer support and you've got a customer with an issue, you can see your agent notes. Again, this is just simple housekeeping. You want to keep everything neat and organized. So again, you can see that there are three replies to this, and I can add another. So that is the power of the reply. It just keeps it neatly nested. And after you're done, you hit the little submit button down here. We'll talk about that as well. But after you're done, your reply, see, here's the main message. The replies get neatly tucked away underneath the message. So anytime I come to this message, I can see the conversation as it happened. It gets really ugly really quickly if everybody is just creating new messages. So what I do, I trim mercilessly. If somebody posts a new message that should have been a reply, I ask them to delete it and move it to where it should be. It's just good housekeeping, because if you don't keep control of it, it becomes a mess and then people don't want to be here. So that is the three most important pieces, I think: the channel, the message, and the thread or the reply. Now, with your messages, you can also share it with somebody. So as an example, you've onboarded a new client, you can share it with them and say, "Hey, so and so," or you can just copy the link and send it to them. Um, but you can draw their attention to it so you can easily share it. Um, I'll show you some of the options here. If it's a post where you don't want to get a lot of notifications, you can turn that off by the message. If you wanted to come back to it later, one of the things you can do is mark it as unread. I personally don't do that because then you have a whole bunch of unread and you don't know what you've seen and what you haven't. What I do instead is to remind me about this. So they've got some defaults where you can remind yourself in 20 minutes, an hour, 3 hours, tomorrow, next week, etc. So the reminder is really helpful. And this is what I prefer over email because a lot of people think, oh, email, I just leave it unread and then I got to find it. This, the system does it for you. Start a huddle in a thread. That's just basically if you want to touch base with a team, you can pull people in. If you want to share this, you can copy the link. What I do with my most important, so every single channel I have an intro with links to relevant things and priorities and stuff like that. You can pin that so it's always at the top of the channel. So whenever somebody comes into the channel, the very first thing they see is the guide to that channel. So I usually put the purpose of the channel, what's going to be covered, what do you need to know, when do you need to know it, that sort of thing. And always, what's your next step? So you can pin that and it shows up at the top and it kind of becomes this slightly colored version rather than plain white. And if you're done with that at the top, maybe you want to put something else, you can unpin it from the channel. Now, if you're an administrator and you find a message is either inappropriate or it's in the wrong place, you do have the option to delete it. And there are some more message shortcuts. You can find them here. You just click and it'll show you other things you can do. We're not going to go too far into that, but that is the high level. Now, there are times I strongly encourage you to think about what are the main areas of communication and who are they for. So most of mine, when I have a course, they're open to the public, which means everybody I've invited to the space gets in. But you'll see down here I have some little locked ones. These are my private ones, and I'll just show you this very quickly. Um, The little lock means only people I invite can see it. So this is limited. So this is an area or a place you would have very private conversation. So for example, you might have a private channel for each team on in your organization. You might have a private channel for management. You might have a private channel. I have one set up where we have the management team of a client that we communicate with in a private channel. We also have a private channel for their team. So everybody can see, if they're invited to that channel, they can see what's in the channel, but others can't see what's going on. So if you need to have a private conversation with more than one person, you can create a new channel and lock it. And by the way, it's a one way. You can create a channel that's public and turn it into private. You can't take a private channel and make it public. What you'd have to do if you wanted more people in it, you'd have to add them to the channel. And the way to do that is you just click add people and you can either add new members to the channel. So whenever somebody joins Slack, they come to the channel, or you can create a channel and you can start a new channel that's public. So this is private because it's got the little lock, public because it's got the little hashtag. Um, Now, if you're just communicating one-on-one with a partner and you don't need this to be shared ever, and that's the important thing, if it's never needed to be shared, you would create a direct message. So you can just easily, if you don't have them listed, you can just do plus and it'll show you who your direct messages can be with. Now, Slack sets up default channels. You can edit, delete, change all of them. The only one you can't is they have this general channel, so I just leave it. I don't usually use it because it's general basically says I don't know where to put something, so I'm going to leave it here. The goal with channels is have just enough to meet your needs, but not too many that it becomes clunky. So the other little best practice I found is I use numbering in my channels. And people ask me, "Well, why do you do that?" Simple answer is I can force Slack to list the channels in the order I want people to see them in. If you just use the alphabet and you just type in and you give it a name like Start Here or Slack or Introductions, Slack will alphabetize it. So what I do is I always start at a high level and I use two digits, so 0001, 02. You can decide how you want to organize it, but I want it so that it's at a high level sorted according to my help is in one place, my my material is in another, and then this is just the segments of my course. So you might want to have help, which is where anybody can go to get help. You might have an internal section, you might have an external section, you might have onboarding, you might have offboarding, but give some thought to the order of the channels. And honestly, for your first round, I would try to have no more than 10 channels. And so I use 00 dash help. That way all the help is organized together. And then as a subset of help, I have 00. So one of the things I recommend you always do is have a start here channel that's at the top. And basically, if somebody gets lost or confused or doesn't know what to do, they can always come to the top and get help. And so what I did in the start here is I explained what each channel prefix means. I've explained where they can go to get some help on things. You can see this ends at 5 and I've got 9, so I need to update this. But think of the very first post in every channel as the map to the subterranean. And so under help, I've got 1, 2, 3 down to 4. And then under ready, I've got 1, 2, 3 up to 9. And then these channels, I haven't gone in great detail because they're very specific things. Literally, there's one main message, and then there's several sub messages. So when people complete their homework, they just reply in the thread. So it's meant to be really, really simple. Um, that's kind of the high level of the channels. Now I'm going to show you some of the things you can do. So the first thing I recommend is if somebody invites you to Slack or if you set up Slack, and you have to do this in every workspace you're part of because it doesn't transfer from workspace to workspace. Your information in Slack is private. Slack does not have access, or they say they don't. Um, so there's no transfer of knowledge between workspaces. Um, but what you want to do is you click on your little image and you can set your status. If you have a team, are you in the office, out of office, are you away? Um, so, for example, you can use these default things. And so this way your team knows, oh, Jeff's not available right now. But the big thing is, so you can set yourself as away. If you don't want, let's say you need some focus time, and I really recommend this. If you're focusing on something, you can pause the notifications so that you don't get them. You can even create a schedule. But what you want to do is the two things you want to look at your profile and your preferences. So under profile, you want a picture. This way people can see who you are. And what you want to do under edit here is put in your full name, your display name, how you want people to reply to you, what's your title. You can record an audio clip to pronounce your name. You can include pronunciation and you can put your time zone in. I really recommend you update your name and your photo at least. And again, you can set your status just down here. And if you want people to call you, you can include your phone number, for example. So that's the simple thing about profile. Now under preferences, And by the way, there's multiple places to find preferences, but the easiest is click on your picture, left click, go to preferences, and I encourage you to read through the preferences. I'll show you a few of my highlights. Um, I genuinely, I manage my community very actively. You will decide, at some point maybe you don't want to be notified. Um, I don't like it when Slack is active and my phone just goes bing, 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 bing. So usually I set my mobile device to get no notifications. Um, on my PC, I'm okay with generally direct messages. And again, you need to set these preferences for every Slack workspace you're in. Um, I use most of the defaults, but this is really, really cool. If you have a keyword that you want to be tracking, so you can set it, and whenever that word is typed into Slack somewhere, you'll get a notification of it. So, for example, maybe clientology is a keyword I want to track. The other thing, the notification schedule, I really like this. Um, when I'm done work, I want to be done work. So I usually set the parameters at the end of the day. And when I want reminders, I can set it a default time. I usually leave it at 9 a.m. and then I can change it each one. Most of this stuff, I don't particularly like sound, so I usually leave it off. Um, a preview will pop up if you're getting a notification. So if you're doing Zoom a lot, sharing your screen, I always disable that so it doesn't pop up. And I tend to mute all sounds from Slack. And that's kind of the high level of notifications. Now in the sidebar, this is the sidebar over here, you can show and select what's going to show up at the top. I don't generally want to see direct messages at the top because I already see them down at the bottom. Um, but you can pick what you see and sort it the way you want. Themes, you can pick your theme. I usually use the default. I don't get into the color coding and things. Um, Now, the messages and the media, I like things clean. That's my default. I usually just use display names. I don't need to know their full name because if I click on it, I know it anyways. Um, I like the 24-hour clock. You can set your default skin tone. Um, this is a handy one. If you want to show one-click reaction, which we'll talk about last, um, you can set your primary ones, and this is a place where you'd use, for example, if you're doing um, the help desk, you might have a code to show that there's an open task. I know Slack themselves, they use color coding, and I don't remember what, but let's say they have a red circle that means urgent, a blue circle that means important but not urgent, and then they have a white circle that means fix it whenever you get a chance. So you can search by the reactions. But what I do is when I'm looking at something, so if I need to find something quickly and I come back to it a lot, I give it the looking eyes reaction. And when I'm done with something, I give it the check mark and say it's done. And dolphin is just a way of me saying, well done, you've been a dolphin in this, which is another conversation for another day. And I usually leave the rest blank, but if you want to have an email forwarded to Slack, you can create a unique email address for it. Language and region, you want to set up the language. Accessibility, you can customize it. Um, for mark as read, I always update this and I say start me where I left off. Um, Here we go. Start me at the newest message and leave unseen messages unread. So I don't like it when it automatically marks everything unread because when I go to a channel, then I lose everything. And I like to be prompted to confirm. So we can set our audio and video status here. You can see the connected accounts. But the one I usually recommend people make is under advanced. Um, Here's some input options. So the one that drives me crazy is when you press enter, it sends a message. So you get a bunch of one-liners. I always change it to start a new line. And the rest I generally leave as defaults. So now the last thing I wanted to talk about for a message is the reaction. So as I said, you can have your top three here, or you can create a custom one and you can use, so it'll always show you your frequently used, your productivity ones, and then you can just sort of go down through this. And if you want, you can add a custom emoji. Have a, if you define it for each channel, you can say include these in a message at the top so people know, for example, red circle is urgent, etc. And the last thing I wanted to share is the search methodology. And at the very top, there is a search button. And you can search within a channel. You can search by messages. You can search for files. You can search messages from people. And it's really great because you just start. So let's put, maybe we want to find the word authority. Um, we can search, and once you've searched, then you can start to filter. So you can add who it's from. You can add a filter for what channel it might be in. You can have who might be in the conversation. You can have a date range. And my most powerful one is you can search, as I said, for the reactions. So maybe we want to search for a red circle. What that tells me is there's nothing here. So you can add more filters, or you can just go back here, or you can see your search history and you can repeat. So you can, as you can see, you can search for unreads. I have none. You can search for direct messages. You can search for drafts. I have one. And if you have a draft, you just need to hit send. And that is really truly the power of Slack. It's an amazing tool. Like I said, it's really, to get set up and to get playing around in it, it's free. And you can invite people. So you click down here and you can invite people using either their email address, or you can send them an invitation link and they can click on it and come in. But Slack is a really powerful tool. So if you, as an example, were using it as a help desk, you would, so you can clear your search here. Using it as a help desk, you might use the word ticket, because it's going to be a ticket, and you'd look for the reactions, for a red circle. And by the way, if I'm thinking about something, I give it the thinking face. But that is Slack in a nutshell. I welcome any questions, comments, thoughts in the comments below, and we will do future videos going into more depth. But I just wanted you to understand how robust Slack can be and how it can truly handle your communication. Just as a side note, I studied the company Slack very in depth, and it fascinated me that they don't have internal email systems. 100% of their communication goes through Slack, and they have about 2,000 employees. They run their help desk and things like that. So I would strongly encourage you to take a look at Slack and see how it might help you. Either, if you're a for-profit entity, how would it help you communicate with your team and with your clients? And if you're a not-for-profit entity, think about ways it could help you communicate with all the stakeholders, whether it's your vendors, whether it's your supporters, the people you're helping. Um, Obviously, I would say for your industry, check out the privacy, see if it's robust enough. I'm not going to comment on the security of Slack because I haven't tested it in depth, but to my experience for teaching courses and for onboarding and offboarding people, it's secure enough for what I need. Again, I'm not putting people's private data through here. Oh, we didn't talk about apps. That will be something for another day, but there are, I don't know how many, but there are a lot of integrations. I would dare say that if there's a piece of software that you use, um, you can integrate. It really integrates well with things like Outlook and Gmail, but it also integrates with Zoom, Trello. There's a lot of integrations. One of my favorite is I use Polly. It's a polling app. So you can ask people, meeting time, who's available at 9 versus 10. It's really quick and easy, but again, there are a ton of apps that are external and they integrate really well with Slack. So you can see there's all kinds of options. The free version, I think you're allowed 3 integrations. Again, you can kind of figure out based on these categories what's available and what you need. So that's Slack and at a high level. We'll be doing some more advanced stuff. We'll be showing you actual use cases and things going forward. So, but for now, watch the video and play along and test. And if you're brand new to Slack, go to slack.com and you can see you can create a new workspace or you can join and launch other workspaces you're already in. So it's really easy to get started. And I would say start a new workspace. It's going to be a little easier for me because I already have the email, but you start the workspace. Okay. And so you want to start the workspace or you can sign into existing. And it's really, really simple. Just walk through the tutorial as they go. So thank you for your time and attention and happy slacking.